Hi there, I'm Charlie McKnife, and right now it's the Halloween season, which means that it's time to talk about a spooky movie. Today I'm going to be talking about The Sudbury Devil, a recent addition to the world of historical horror movies. The Sudbury Devil is a historical horror film set in Sudbury, Massachusetts in the aftermath of King Philip's War. It follows Puritan witch hunters investigating a reported sighting of satanic activity in the woods of Sudbury town. It was written and directed by popular YouTube history guy Andrew Rakich of the YouTube channel Shea Films. I saw The Sudbury Devil on September 17th through the online showing. I had hoped to talk about this movie sooner after I watched it. I had even written and recorded a review, but unfortunately I wasn't happy with that first attempt and didn't feel like I was fully being honest enough. And admittedly, I was in the middle of a sewing project that was taking up all of my creative energy, so I'm giving this another go. This means that it has been a bit since I watched the movie. It's not available on streaming yet, so my memories of the specifics aren't going to be as clear, but I do feel like I've had more time to sit with my overall feelings on it, and so that's what I'm going to be trying to express. Also, spoiler warning. I am familiar with Shea's YouTube channel, and I've kept up with what he's said about this movie and his intent behind it. I know that one of his intentions for this was for it to be an artsy historical horror without class, the people's artsy historical horror. Yet I'm not sure I really feel that from it. I guess what I mean by that is that this feels a bit more like a makes you think / educates you on a topic you didn't know much about type of movie than just a raunchy horror romp. This movie is based largely on the elaborated theory of witchcraft, and as far as I know, it's an extremely accurate depiction. The experience of watching this movie is very alien. It's very rooted in the perspective of the Puritans, their worldview, their fears and prejudices and spiritual beliefs. But it's difficult to really feel connected to that on an emotional level. Paired with the pre-recorded Q&A that played after, this makes for an interesting educational experience, even more so when paired with the online content of Shea Films and his occasional collaborator, Dr. Justin Sledge of Esoterica, who was present for this Q&A. I've seen people compare this movie favorably to the likes of Ravenous and A Field in England, and having seen both of these, I realized that what I took away from them may have been very different from what these other people have. In some ways, I can see the influence. In certain scenes and certain imagery, it even references Ravenous at one point. And of course, all three films are weird and gross, though A Field in England is more weird and Ravenous more gross. I don't think I care much about weird and gross one way or another, though. That isn't necessarily enough of a draw for me. I like Ravenous and A Field in England first and foremost because I enjoy the characters. I came away from both of those movies having enjoyed watching these people and their dynamics, having enjoyed the time I spent with them, even if I didn't particularly like them as people, I enjoyed them as characters. Both Ravenous and A Field in England have a tenderness to them, something that lingers as the story conveys horrific violence. The weird and gross is interesting because it involves these people and it means something to them, and that matters to me because they matter to me. It's a huge part of what makes these movies work so well. I do not like the characters in The Sudbury Devil. I do not feel like I know them, and I do not feel any tenderness for them. Maybe it's because there isn't enough time to get to know them and to feel emotionally invested in their worldview. Maybe it's the tremendous amount of sexual assault. There is a lot of sex in this movie, nearly all of which is dubiously consensual at best. The power dynamics of the situations mean that most of these encounters could be accurately described as rape. Without really knowing or caring about the characters, it's difficult to know what to make of these scenes. They aren't shocking, and they don't feel like an exploration into why someone would do this. These characters are just assholes. One might expect there to be a dichotomy between the Puritans and the witches, the status quo and those outside of it. It almost feels like maybe that was the intent, but no, all of these people are assholes, and they're assholes in a lot of the same ways as each other, and I don't sympathize with any of them. They're all deeply, deeply horrible people, doing these horrible things based on beliefs that we don't have enough time to feel emotionally invested in. At the very least, the sexual violence is never portrayed in a way that's meant to titillate. There's minimal nudity, and it's all awkward and gross. It's never trying to be enjoyable to watch. This is a good thing and the correct way to portray sexual violence. However, it's not quite horrifying either. At times, it feels almost like it's supposed to be funny, though it isn't. A large portion of this movie, specifically the portion that involves sexual assault, is just deeply mortifying. You are sitting in the awkwardness of watching these people be deeply horrible, and the feeling is one of desperately wishing for this moment to end. This movie is successfully unsettling, but it does have a consistent issue of otherwise struggling to figure out a tone. Without an attachment to the characters, it can't quite have stakes, so it isn't particularly terrifying. Having all your characters be meat sacks waiting to be slaughtered is pretty common in horror comedies, but this movie never quite feels like it wants to be a horror comedy. It's unsettling and awkward, but rarely does it feel funny. Except for the scene where a character trips on her own still attached entrails. That was really funny. I liked that part. Watching this movie, it's difficult to really get a sense of space and time or connection to the landscape. This, in some ways, helps the unsettling atmosphere, but in other ways detracts from it, making it hard to feel fully in it. This is a difficult complaint for me to know how to phrase, but I guess I'm used to a lot of the kinds of indie horror that I'm into being very good at giving a sense of being in the world and the landscape, a sense of connection to the location, and for some reason I struggled to feel that here, though it's difficult for me to figure out why. I think part of the reason I feel the need to bring this up is because this movie also deals with the apocalyptic nature of the creation of America. It deals with the creation of modern-day New England as an apocalyptic curse, and so I guess I just wanted to have felt more of a sense of connection to the world that we're watching be destroyed. Okay, all that was very harsh. I enjoyed the over-the-top practical gore, and as I said before, found some of that gore genuinely funny. And again, I did find the movie genuinely unsettling as well. It's able to cultivate a strange and unsettling atmosphere. I found the reoccurring image of the weird fetus thing to be particularly unsettling. There's something about it that's just bad to look at. I think that the descriptions of the violence of King Philip's War are the most impactful part of the movie, and I think that the disgust at that violence, that real violence, disgust at America and at this city on a hill built atop the bodies of innocent people, is palpable and real and is the most emotionally resonant part of the movie. Also, though I found the visual effects a bit lacking, the floating lights did still interest me in the way that they're sort of reminiscent of how people describe UFO sightings. Something I've been reading about lately is the idea of connecting these earlier beliefs about witches and demons to modern-day beliefs about aliens and UFOs as part of one long lineage of American beliefs about magic, slowly developing from more spiritual to more techno-magical. This is a topic that I enjoy thinking about, and I enjoyed being reminded of it. The costumes in this movie are very, very good. I think they're one of the big things that really stuck in my brain after watching this. I sew and am currently getting into making garments and costumes, so the clothing in the things I watch is increasingly becoming one of the parts that I'm most interested by. The music is very good as well. It sort of reminds me of the soundtrack of Yellow Jackets. It was, however, a bit too constant for my tastes. I tend to enjoy stuff with a bit more silence. Ultimately, this is an entertaining movie, and I would recommend it, and I probably will watch it again when the option is available. Ultimately, I think a lot of my complaints have to do with my own personal tastes. I am a found footage guy, and my ideal horror experience is feeling like I'm just hanging out with a bunch of characters while they lose their shit in the woods. And if your ideal horror movie experience is just watching a bunch of crazy stuff happen from the perspective of a bunch of Puritans, then this will probably be the movie for you. And if for some reason Mr. Attenshea himself has found this video a terrifying and real possibility, I just want to say that all of my criticisms come from a place of respect. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye. Happy Halloween!